Welcome back to the HMIS New User Training. In this module, we'll talk about the release of information. Now, the release of information is 100% required for all continuums. This is both Maricopa County as well as the balance of state. And this must be presented to the client. The release of information helps the coordination of care and helps the client understand exactly what their information is used for and how it is used in HMIS. In addition to presenting clients with the release of information, or ROI, agencies must also store the ROIs. Now, the release of information is informed by something called a privacy notice. Both the balance of state as well as Maricopa County have a privacy notice. The privacy notice describes how client data may be used, and it must be available at intake sites and on a client's request. So while a client must be presented with the release of information, the privacy notice just has to be available to clients, but it does have to be available on request and, like it says, at intake sites. Now, there are some important policy considerations, and there's a few differences for balance of state versus Maricopa. I will start with balance of state here. So for the balance of state, the ROI must be documented in the HMIS software. That means the client signing the paper form isn't enough. You must go the extra step and document that the client signed it in the software itself. If no ROI is documented in the software, your data will not share. So even if you are trying to coordinate with other agencies or even within your agency but to other projects, data will not share if that documentation is not in the software. In addition, the balance of state does require the ROI be recorded every single year. And the best practice is to record this per project. So if a client is coming to your agency and they move to different projects in your agency, it is best practice to go and present the ROI for each project that they're enrolling in. On the Maricopa side, we have some other policy considerations. Now, we do highly recommend documenting the ROI in the HMIS software for Maricopa County, but it isn't strictly required. In Maricopa, when a client declines to share their information or say no to the ROI, you must submit a ticket to the HMIS help desk when a client doesn't want to share data. In Maricopa County, we have to actively lock the client's profile when a client does not want their data to share. In balance of state, this is not a concern because the software itself manages that process. In Maricopa County, though, that ticket must be submitted when a client declines to share their information on the ROI. Now, here are some more BOS or balance of state specific considerations. As previously mentioned, and this is just a really critical point, so I'll mention it a couple more times, is the ROI must be recorded in the HMIS software on the ROI tab, which you can see pictured. In addition, the dates are crucial. The entry date for a project must match the ROI start date. So my first image here is an entry exit or an enrollment for a program. You'll learn more about that in the UDE video in the next module. But here we can see the client has enrolled in your project on September 1st. Now consider that you record an ROI, but as you can see pictured in the box, the red box on the bottom picture, it shows a start date of 9/2. Now most information for a client is entered on the project start date or 9/1 as shown on the top picture with the arrow. If your release of information shows the day after 9/2, most likely almost no information will share. So any data you entered on 9/1 on the client's project date, including client demographics, homelessness history information, income, disabilities, health insurance, that information will not share because the ROI date does not cover the project start date. So we want to make sure that we're very cognizant of which dates we use. So what a better looking situation would be on the bottom, we now see that the start date is 9/1/2024, which matches the project start date exactly. This will allow all the information to share, like previously mentioned, the demographic information, homelessness history, income, disabilities, which is what we want to happen in HMIS. Some additional balance of state considerations. So in balance of state, the ROI is good for 1 year and it must be signed every year. This is written down in the privacy notice and it's also documented on the ROI document itself. It should be and it must be recorded per project. So in the bottom picture, we see that they're the same agency, we're calling it ABC, and they have two separate projects. One ROI will not cover both projects. So if you want the data to share from project number 1, you'll have to have an ROI to show project number 1 is sharing data from 9/1 to 9/1 over the course of a year. And if you also want data to share entered from project 2, you must also enter an ROI for project 2, again showing the dates 9/1 to 9/1, 2024 to 2025 in this case. But it's really critical that when recording the ROI in ServicePoint itself or in the HMIS software, you're not recording it per client, you're recording it for every project the client is working with. And finally, we highly encourage uploading the ROI in HMIS itself, and you can do that right where the arrow is pointing with that little paperclip icon. So we're actually going to jump into the Balance of State ServicePoint and show how to document an ROI. It's a fairly quick process, and we'll show you how to upload an attachment as well. We're now on the Balance of State site, and so we're going to go search for our client. So we'll go to Clients and search for a client down here, as we reviewed in the HMIS client search and entry video. And we're going to want to navigate to the ROI tab. So we'll click on that, and we see a button called Add Release of Information. We'll select that button, and we have a series of options. So you can select any household members that are also being enrolled with the client. In this situation, we'll just say it's a single client being enrolled. We want to make sure our provider is correct. This should match the project that the client is enrolling with. And we select whether a release was granted, yes or no. So yes or no does affect the visibility in the Balance of State site. If the client selects yes, you'll document yes, and that client's information will share throughout the site. If the client says no and does not agree to share the information, you would select no, and because of this, in the Balance of State site, that client's information will not share automatically, as it's designed to take its cues from this module here. In this scenario, we'll say the client said yes. We'll have our start date, and we'll put our end date for 1 year out, since the ROIs are good for a period of 1 year. We'll do our documentation. So we're going to say that the signed statement from client, and the witness would be the person who obtained that ROI from the client. We then click Save Release Information, and you're all set. Now in the following year, when it does become 10/14/2025, you want to make sure to go ahead and have the client resend the ROI and enter a new one starting on 10/15/2025. And in addition, if your client does join another project in your agency, you want to make sure that we add another release information with the appropriate dates. The final piece we'll cover here is just adding attachments. So we'll click on the paperclip icon. We'll click Add New File Attachment. We'll click Choose File. And you just select the file. And that's it. So we're going to jump back to the presentation and look at a couple of Maricopa specific policy points. And we'll also review how to record the ROI in Maricopa County, which is extremely similar to what we're just seeing here. And now we're on Maricopa considerations. So we do ask in Maricopa County that you must present the client an ROI, and you should present them the ROI at program entry and recertification where applicable. So if a client is going from one program to another program within your agency, you need to present that client with an ROI. Or if your client has been in HMIS in the past and is new to your particular agency and or program, you want to present that client with the ROI once again, so they have the right to go ahead and refuse or decline or accept the sharing of information. In addition, in Maricopa County, we highly encourage, but we do not require the ROI to be recorded in the HMIS software. So just like we showed a moment ago for the Balance of State site, that same functionality exists where you can record the ROI, and we do recommend it, but it is not strictly required. The Maricopa Privacy Notice and ROI is slightly different from Balance of State as well. So in Balance of State, we were showing the end date was recorded 1 year out from the ROI start date. In Maricopa County, we'll use the end date of 1/1/2099 for the purposes of recording the ROI in HMIS. And as a final piece, we highly encourage uploading the ROI to ServicePoint as well. This will help with documentation and just making sure that we clearly understand exactly what the client agreed or not agreed to when choosing to share their information. So we'll jump into the Maricopa County HMIS site. We'll record how to document an ROI in that site as well. We're now in the Maricopa County HMIS software, and once again, we'll go ahead and look for a client. So we have a favorite test client here, which we'll use. And just like in Balance of State, we'll go to the ROI tab. And just like in Balance of State, we'll click Add Release of Information and do the same documentation. So the small differences here is you would continue to show yes or no for release granted. So yes if the client agrees to share their information, and no if the client does not. Unlike the Balance of State though, in Maricopa County, if a client declines to share their information or selects no, you must submit a ticket to the HMIS help desk saying you would like that client's profile to be locked. In Balance of State, that's automatic, but in Maricopa County, that extra step must be taken by caseworkers and staff. In addition, the other difference is instead of a year out, in Maricopa County, we do the end date back to 20/01/01/2099. And again, we'll do documentation. So we'll do signed statement from client. We'll do HMIS trainer in this case again. And we'll click Save Release of Information. Again, just like before, you can also add an attachment. So we'll go in through that process once again. And we do highly encourage this as well. Now, just like in Balance of State, if a client does go to a new provider, a new program, or needs a recertification in the same program, we would want to record another release information or present the client with another ROI to ensure that they understand exactly the information that's being shared and they can decide whether or not that data should be shared. The final piece we'll do here is, since this client did select no, for Maricopa County, we'll show exactly how to submit that ticket in the ticketing portal to have that client profile locked. We are now on Solari's Homeless Management Information System page, which is where you can submit tickets to the help desk. So in our situation, we had a client in Maricopa County say they did not want to share their information. In order to go ahead and make sure that the client profile is locked and protected, what you would do is you would click on this button up top, Submit a Ticket. You would click Submit a Ticket once again. And we would navigate down to client issues. Maybe hard to see, but there's a few options here. And what we're going to focus on is client locks. So lock or unlock client accounts with an ROI. So we'll fill out our information. So I'll use my information here. You'll select Maricopa County in this particular case, because Balance of State does not need to do this process as it's automatically done in the software itself. And we just submit a request saying, please lock profile. In this case, it was a test profile, 47404, as they decline to share their information on the ROI. Okay, and then you would click Send. Now, as an important note, you can also unlock a client's profile. If a client's profile is locked, and you work with them and they sign a new ROI saying they would like to go ahead and share their information, you would use this exact same ticket. Instead, you would say, please go ahead and unlock the profile as well. Now, important piece of this, especially when unlocking a client profile, is that we'll want to make sure that we add the attachment or the ROI. We'll want to attach the ROI saying the client did agree to share their information if we're unlocking a profile. To do that, we would go ahead and click Browse. And we just go ahead and select the appropriate document or ROI, saying the client is sharing their information or is declining to share their information. So a couple of other notes for the ticketing portal as well. Just make sure that we're not using any identifying information, so not date of birth, client first, last name, social security information. The client ID is all that you need to share in the ticket, as we can pull up their profile in HMIS. But once the ticket is created, the attachment is added, you would click Send. That concludes the module on the release of information. We really appreciate you watching and we hope you learned something. Happy training!